Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast and have a very special guest on the show today. I have Tiffany Toombs of Blue Lotus Mind. Tiffany, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
No problem. I'm excited as well to have you on. And before we jumped in, I want to read a little bit more about Tiffany so you can hear about all the awesome things that she's doing. And you may know Tiffany as the international speaker and leading expert on rewiring the unconscious mind for success and tapping into your personal potential. For over 20 years, Tiffany has educated and transformed the lives of thousands of people across the world. She is the author of Stop Being a Selfish Bitch, a comprehensive guide to living your best life through radical self-love, a top-rated self-help book. Tiffany's clients and course participants experience undeniable results, showcasing over and over again that our unconscious mind can be our most powerful asset when we truly understand how to make it work for us. Tiffany, are you ready to speak to the I Am CEO community?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So to kick everything off, I know I touched on it a little bit, but I want to hear a little bit more on how you got started. Could you take us through what I call your CEO story? We'll let you get started with the business.
Yeah, so I've been coaching since I was 14. So I started out in the fitness industry. And even back then, my goal was to help people be more comfortable in their skin. And I thought that the way that we could ultimately bring out people's power and their confidence was through fitness, which definitely is a piece of the puzzle. After I finished university, I moved down to Australia. I had plans to backpack for like 6 months to a year, stayed for 8. And it was really an awakening period for me. I hit rock bottom and everything I kind of thought I knew about the world was broken apart for me to really step into who I am. So growing up, I was actually abused by my stepmom growing up. She would lock me in closets, burn me with curling irons. When I was 7, she threatened to leave me on the side of the road on the outskirts of the city that I'm from for a stranger to come and kill. And the last time that I saw her, she was threatening to kidnap me so that my family would never see me again. And so what happened was I developed all of these belief systems about what my worth was. And I developed all these belief systems around not being safe standing out. The abuse would really happen whenever I was getting the attention and she wasn't. And so it caused me to really like shrink back in myself and settle in relationships, settle in business partnerships. I got into business with a couple narcissists in Australia, was dating one at the same time. So my life was just like full of all of this chaos. And so on the day I found out I was pregnant was the day I found out my boyfriend had a girlfriend in another state, and life slowly started to crumble. It was like brick by brick started falling down. Found out that my now ex, was a compulsive liar, and most of what I thought was true in our 3 years together was a lie. And then I lost the baby. And so that really brought me to my knees. And at one point I was suicidal and then considered ending it all. That was the only way that I could see really letting go of all of this pain. And so it was that kind of healing journey that led me to realizing how small I'd been playing, that I had been settling in every area of my life. It showed me the power of the mind. I went through years and thousands of dollars of trying to heal all of this stuff. And it wasn't until I found NLP and hypnosis that I really started to change. I worked with therapists. I went to seminars, the kind where you like dance and there's loud music and lots of high fives and hugs and lots of energy. So you feel awesome there. And then you leave and you realize you haven't really changed. You don't really have any tools. Hired coaches, and overwhelmingly they all told me like, you can't change the past. So we just have to focus on the future, which is what I'd done my entire life. And it made me a perfectionist and a people pleaser and an overachiever. And I'd had some glimpses of success, but nothing that was sustainable. And so when I understood how my mind worked and started to reprogram it to work for me and to let go of all of that stuff from my past to see that none of that determined my worth or my ability to be safe and secure, then life completely changed. And so I also discovered that I had a knack for it, for helping other people with those tools. And that's where the Blue Lotus Mind Institute was born.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry that, that you went through all of that, but it sounds like you've been able to kind of take those experiences and not only help yourself, but help out so many other people because you've been able to kind of harness, as you said, and you touched on the power of the mind and how it can sometimes, direct and determine your altitude and where you can go in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as painful as those experiences were at the time, I wouldn't, if I could go back in a time machine and change any of them, I wouldn't, because I learned so much about myself, so much about what I'm capable of, so much about what it means to be compassionate and empathetic, both to yourself and to others. I mean, the lessons that I got from that time were endless, and they've helped me build a business. They've helped me help other people. They've helped me in my marriage, my now marriage. They've helped me in like every aspect of my life. So I wouldn't change any of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can imagine too that, whenever anybody's going through difficult, frustrating, and hopeless times, it feels like you kind of feel like you're by yourself. And I think that hearing your story, and I appreciate you being so, transparent about everything that you went through, because I think it reminds us sometimes when we have our frustrations, those really low lows, and we feel like there's no way out, when we hear somebody that's able to overcome and now, be able to kind of learn some of the tools that help you to be able to do that, then it gives us hope when we're in those kind of frustrating and desperate times and unfortunate kind of situations. So I know you touched on it a little bit. Could you take us through a little bit more on how you work with your clients with Blue Lotus Minds and exactly what that process looks like?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different ways that we work together. So if they come to me one-on-one, and typically the people that I work with are one-on-one are stuck in some form of self-sabotage, they have imposter syndrome, they are, hitting against a glass ceiling, whether that's financially within their company, whatever it is, but they just feel stuck. Like they feel like there is more capability within them. There's more potential, there's more ability. And they just can't quite find that next level. And so when they come to me, what we look at is, what are the things that are holding you back? So most people don't realize that 95% of the limiting beliefs, well, all beliefs, but even the limiting beliefs that we have now as adults, were planted in the mind between the ages of 0 and 7. So before we really fully understood what the world was about, we developed all these belief systems like I had for so long. And I mean, I couldn't even 10 years ago, I couldn't even call into a radio station or request a song, never mind hop on a podcast interview with somebody, because my belief was that it just wasn't safe to stand out, that it wasn't safe to be in the spotlight, never mind sharing my story in my book and on my podcast and whatnot. So we look at what are those seeds that were planted back in childhood, and everyone's like, oh, this is so cliche, but the truth is, like, it's cliche because that's how we're all programmed. We all get our belief systems from somewhere. And for a while I was actually an accountability coach, and I hated it because it was like glorified babysitting. If you come to me with a goal that you can't hit, I can put together the plan for you. I can hold you accountable to hitting deadlines, but ultimately then you always need me to get to that goal. And what I was finding when I was doing the accountability work was that maybe you would just start taking action naturally in your business, but that procrastination or that fear would shift to another part of your life. So now you procrastinated on going to the gym or on doing food prep or on paying your bills on time. And so the behavior didn't fully ever go away. When I discovered the tools that I have now, and I can both educate people and help them get rid of those beliefs for good, the behavior just changes and you don't have this internal battle going on anymore. So it's kind of like if your mind was a garden, rather than just going to the weeds and like snipping the stem where it hits the dirt. And so your garden looks nice for a day or two, but then those are going to pop back up. Now we pull it out by the root. We go back to that first event using a little bit of meditation, and we change the perspective of that first event. And this is the closest thing that we can do to rewriting our past. Can we hop in a time machine and go back and change it? No. But can we change our perception of that and allow that to change our reality now? Yes.
Yeah, and that's extremely powerful because, just as you said, and as you kind of touched on with your story, is being able to kind of look at the perspective in a different way, or even see sometimes how those. And I love the parallel between having that garden, because it's those seeds that we're planting from 0 to 7, as you kind of touched on, that really grow into how and what we see in the world. And I think if we don't really treat the seed or even pay attention to how it grew as a result of that, then we're doing ourselves a definite disservice.
Absolutely. And what people don't realize is once that seed is planted, we spend the rest of our life watering it, which means
Mm.
we look for validation that it happened. So, because I had this belief that I wasn't worthy of love, I would have friends who would be like, let's hang out this weekend. And then I remember sitting beside the phone. This is before cell phones. So I would sit beside the phone, plugged into the wall, waiting for my friends to call me all weekend. Meanwhile, my dad is like, hey, let's go out and do something. My family is like, hey, let's, let me love you. And I'm like, no, I can't. I'm waiting for this one thing. And then when the phone didn't ring, I'd be like, nobody wants to give me love, because I'm filtering my perception and I'm not seeing the people that are trying to give me love. And I'm only focused on the box that I want it to come in. And this is why so many people miss opportunities and success, is because it doesn't come in the box that you want it in.
Yeah, and it very rarely comes in that way. And I love that you kind of gave that example, because I think so many times if we don't open up or change our perspective, might be a better way to say it, then sometimes we might be blocking ourselves from blessings, from opportunities, or even those phone calls that might be coming in with the people we love and we care about. So I wanted to ask you for your secret sauce. And do you feel like the ability to be able to kind of see that, or maybe help people to see that, is what you feel kind of sets you apart and makes you unique?
Yeah, I would say the thing that probably makes me different is that I can take these complex neuroscience concepts and break it down into pieces, creating analogies, whatever, that everybody can understand. So whether I'm going into a corporate space and I'm doing training there for them to develop their soft skills more, or I'm working with somebody one-on-one or a group of clients all at once, it's helping them be able to have their own aha moment. I think there's plenty of coaches out there who love to tell you the challenge. My preference is to ask questions to lead you to having that aha moment on your own, so that you see that you have the power in you to figure out what your challenge is, and then you're empowered to change it because I've given you the tools. Ultimately, I don't want my aim is to make my clients, corporate or one-on-one, to be totally self-sufficient, to have all the tools that they need. That, yeah, I mean, they can drop me a line and ask me questions and whatnot, but I don't want people to have to have sessions with me regularly. So one-on-one, I work with people for 8 sessions, and 99% of my clients, that's it. After the 8 sessions, like, now we're friends, but they move on to their next thing. And the reason that I want to do that, my mentors are like, this is not a good business model. You're essentially always having to hunt for your food. And I'm like, I know. And like, I'm legitimately here to make a change. And if I can only have so many clients who want to talk to me every month. So if I want to empower a million people, well, then I need to let some go. And so I would say that's what probably makes me the most different.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I can definitely hear that when you were talking about working as an accountability coach and having that period where you felt like you kind of creating that, I guess, dependency might be the right word. And I love that empowerment word, because uh, a lot of times I think the best coaches, in my opinion, often help you to understand the answer that lies within, not kind
Mm-hmm.
of feed you the answer, as you kind of reference that some coaches can do. And I think that when you're able to kind of fish for yourself, or develop the ability to understand that you even know how to fish for yourself, then that gives you that power. And I think it not only makes, changes right there in our lives, but I think it carries on for the rest of our lives and in our business, our relationships, and so many other aspects of what makes us who we are.
Well, and that creates the ultimate ripple effect, right? Like, you're not going to be confident if you have to ask me where to fish every single time or how to bait your hook. But if you know, if you have the confidence in yourself to know that, okay, well, I can go out and I can fish and I can feed my family, then you become able to feed your family and they become able to feed their, and like it just creates this ripple effect. And so I know that if I directly touch 1 million people, the ultimate ripple effect of that is actually 300 million. So that's, you know, when people are like, well, how are you going to change the world? Well, this is how, is because I'm going to rely on the ripple effect because I've empowered so many people to be able to do it on their own.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like creating that domino or setting up those dominoes, and you knock over that domino by having that one conversation, that one coaching, and then it starts to knock over a bigger domino because that person has people that they're influencing, and then you start to reach that 300 million that you touched on. So I absolutely love that. And so I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
I would say regular self-reflection has been what has allowed me to have quite a lot of amount of success in a very short time, is that I take time after everything that I do. I ask myself 2 questions. First one, and I always start with this one, what did I do really well? And it's important that we start there because it's really easy to pick everything apart and be really critical. It's not so easy to look at what we did well. And so when we celebrate our wins, I know that it actually activates the reward circuit in the brain. We get that hit of dopamine, which is what we get when we work out or, you know, we eat sugar. And that hit of dopamine strengthens the pathway in the mind to do more of the same action. So, firstly, what did I do really well? And then secondly, where can I improve next time? What would I like to get better at? Not what did I do terrible? What was my weakness? Even in a SWOT analysis, I don't even talk about weaknesses. I talk about areas for improvement because language matters. And so if I'm talking about this is what I'm bad at, or this is my weakness, then it's always going to feel gross to work on that area. So what is it that I want to improve on? And those 2 questions have allowed me to level up and grow so much in a short period of time. Like people are like, how do you grow so quickly? It's because I actively identify what I'm doing well and I keep doing more of those things, right? If I know that if I'm speaking on stage and I know that this joke got a certain reaction, we'll keep using that one in my future presentations. And where can I improve? And so I think a lot of people, there's this missing element of behavioral flexibility where as soon as something starts working, we want to change it. But that's a form of self-sabotage. So recognize what's working well, keep doing more of that, and then ask yourself, where can I improve and make changes there?
Yeah, that's extremely powerful. I love those hacks because I think so many times, as you kind of touched on, we start to kind of see that success, and sometimes we might want to take it to another level, and we try to reframe and change, and throw out the baby in the bathroom, do all those things to completely reinvent. When sometimes, like we talked about, creating lasting change sometimes starts out with those little things. So sometimes it's so shifts. It's understanding that, hey, what can I do to be a little bit better? This works, so how can I be a little bit better? And then you make those small changes and you start to see tremendous growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And focusing on like one change at a time, I think a lot of people have this all or none mentality of like, I have to change everything and be the best at everything or nothing at all. And that, like, you may get bursts of success, but then you're also going to have periods of collapse. So
Yeah.
if you just add one thing at a time, ultimately that's going to have a compound effect and you're going to get the end result a whole lot faster.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big sports fan and basketball, and I know that some of the best athletes, what they do is they have a certain skill that they try to perfect that summer, so that they come back, and it's not just that one summer that builds up into them being great superstar athletes. It's the kind of compound effect, I guess you can say, of all those summers perfecting one specific skill, and then they become really great and phenomenal at what they do.
Yeah, I mean, like Michael Jordan, he just sat
Mhm.
there and would shoot 100 free throws over
Mhm.
and over and over again, and that compounds on itself. But he's not just in that moment, he made be consciously focused on like the free throw, but you're getting so much other stuff from it, right? You're building your confidence. You're showing yourself that you can keep promises to yourself. You're developing consistency. You're developing the ability to block out all other sound. You're developing the muscle memory. So all of these other things come into it that you might not consciously know at that point in time when you're working on that one thing. And when you look back, I love Steve Jobs' quote that we can only connect the dots looking back. That's when we start to see how much of a compound effect things have had.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. I love his, I think it's a Stanford commencement speech too. So
Mm.
it's definitely a powerful one. And so I wanted to ask you now for what I call a CEO nugget. And this could be a word of wisdom or piece of advice. I know we referenced kind of jumping back into the time machine, but it might also be something you would tell your younger business self or potentially a client.
The hustle and grind mentality is not the way to success would be
Mm-hmm.
the nugget. I think there's a bit of a shift coming. I'm seeing more and more entrepreneurs talking about this. I saw Gary Vee talked about this the other day, that we actually need sleep. Like, our bodies are not machines, and we are nature just as much as the tree in my front yard or the grass on my lawn, and nothing grows 24/7. So we do have to actively take time out. Um, when we're recording this, Labor Day weekend just passed, and I saw my news feed on social media filled with the long weekends or when the winners get ahead. And I'm like, not necessarily. Like, I know my husband and I will take a night or two, like totally out in nature. We'll go camping, something like that, once a month or so. And then we'll take a bigger holiday every quarter. And we come back with so much more energy, so much more passion, so much more creativity and innovation, that we're able to move forward a lot faster. So you can't outwork your biology. Like, it's just not possible. So you might as well use it to your advantage and understand the power of sleep and the power of rest. The mind reprograms itself when we're in deep rest or sleep. So you can read all the personal development books that you want. You can listen to all the podcasts you want, but that information won't really sink in until you go to sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we kind of zoom over the recharging piece. And just like you said, I feel like I saw maybe the exact same video with Gary Vee. And I was like, is this the same person? Because he definitely talked about, grinding, through the weekend, not taking any holidays or anything. But you're starting to see that, where I think he even said that, hey, I sleep, 6 to 8 hours a day, which,
Yeah.
you never really heard from him. But you're starting to see that how important it is from a scientific standpoint, but also from an effective standpoint, because you can be so much more effective when you're well rested and recharged and going forward.
Yeah, there was a study done on Navy SEALs, so like
Mm-hmm.
the fittest of the fittest human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And the first month, they gave them 8 hours of sleep, which is kind of what scientists think we all need.
Mm-hmm.
And then they tested their physical and their mental performance. Then month 2, they got 6 hours of sleep a night, which is what most people in society kind of function on, is this 6 hours of sleep. And then they retested them again, mentally and physically. And then month 3, they had them on 6 hours of sleep again, and then retested mentally and physically. But at the end of month 3, they asked them to rate, was their performance more like month 1 or month 2? Because what they saw was that there was a decline in both physical ability and cognitive ability between month 1 and month 2. But month 3, when they were asked to say, are you back at month 1 rates
Mm-hmm.
levels, or are you at month 2, the majority of them said they were back at month 1 when they were still at month 2 levels. And so it
Mm-hmm.
also changes and alters your ability to perceive
Right.
your own abilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so powerful. And it kind of goes back to what you were, talking about in the very beginning, as far as the hacks and being able to kind of understand and kind of rate yourself and be aware of exactly what you're doing to kind of double down on that. But if you're not aware of what's working and what's not, then sometimes you're kind of stunning your growth as a whole. So I wanted to ask you now my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on this show. So Tiffany, what does being a CEO mean to you?
I think for me, a CEO means being the most authentic and genuine leader that we're capable of being, and like leading from the front, being a conduit to bring out other people's potential. I think that true leaders who ultimately find lasting success, the ones whose name goes down in the history books, they're the ones who understand when to push and when to just let be. They're the ones who know the questions to ask and when to give a little bit more information. And so for me, it's really about leading from the front, showing people what's possible, being able to be vulnerable enough to share, like, hey, this is what I'm going through as I'm going through it, instead of, oh, well, 3 years ago this is what happened for me, but nobody knew. And then really just empowering the people around them to tap into whatever their strengths and their superpowers are.
Yeah, that's extremely powerful. And I love that word conduit, because I think so many times leadership is not something you hold on to and you block off and you guard from everybody else. It's something that has an infectious domino effect, as we kind of talked about, that ripple effect that we referenced. And I think true leadership, when you're able to do that and demonstrate that on a regular basis, it not only helps us out, helps our teams out, but helps out the world as a whole. So definitely appreciate you for that definition. Appreciate you for doing it as well. What I wanted to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best they can get a hold of you, listen to the podcast, get a copy of the book, and find out about all the awesome things you're doing.
Awesome. So I would say, like, my parting wisdom, I guess, would be that we have so much more power than we even realize. One of my favorite quotes comes from Thomas Edison, that if we were to truly do what we were capable of, we would literally astound ourselves. And so I know that, the traditional method of SMART goals, the R means realistic, but I want you to start letting go of the need to be realistic, because it was once upon a time not realistic to think that I could be talking to somebody anywhere in the world and see them and have this conversation, and this conversation then be broadcast to people all over the world. So the people who have truly changed the shape of society as we know it are the people who were unwilling to accept what was realistic. So be willing to let go of that need to put a ceiling on what you can achieve, to see what your true potential is. And you can go to my website. So my corporate website is epconsultingfirm.com, or my more coaching website, which is bluelotusmind.com. And my podcast is called Take the Leap. It's available on all the platforms, and my book is available on Amazon. It'll be easier for you to find if you search my name.
Awesome. And to make it even easier, we'll have the links and information in the show notes for the books,
Beautiful.
podcasts, and all the awesome things that you're doing. But I appreciate you reminding us of that as well, too, because I think kind of being realistic sometimes robs us personally, but the world, of some of the biggest inventions and impactful things that can be created. And I think those are the people that aren't realistic, that create new inventions and new things, that have us connecting and having this podcast interview and taking things to an entirely different level. So I appreciate that reminder. I appreciate your time. And again, I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thanks so much for having me.